Joining me live now is Dr. Michael Turner, a pollster and political strategist who's been a senior advisor to several election campaigns in the UK. Mike, why now? It's rare that we get a summer election.
Well, that's the great question, isn't it? It's actually a question that many Conservative backbench MPs have been asking themselves because it certainly appears that they weren't informed about the announcement, and many of them are disappointed that they will be receiving, let's just say, far fewer paychecks before they end up leaving Parliament. The announcement was, billed as, a necessary, given that one of the additional pledges that Rishi Sunak made, inflation coming down to normal levels, was achieved, and therefore the green shoots of economic recovery should not be trampled on by an incoming Labour government, according to the Conservative government. But I think the reality is that Rishi Sunak is afraid. He's afraid that he's going to go down as one of the worst election performances, overseeing one of the worst election performances in the UK in over 100 years for the Conservative Party. And I think also he was aware that Nigel Farage was this week planning on announcing his candidacy for reform. Obviously, the early announcement sort of scuppered that, but he didn't want the right to be cannibalised and for his fate to be sealed.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, Rishi Sunak should be afraid, according to all of the published polls. I've seen he's behind some 20 points. Is that about right?
Yeah, that is about right. I'm not 100% sure it will land there. Polls do tend to tighten in the heat of an election, but the difference between the UK and Australian elections is in Australia we're fortunate we have compulsory voting, which means that everyone is compelled to have a say. In the UK you don't have to turn out, and in the landslide 1997 election for the Labour Party, turnout was very low. Effectively what happened is a lot of Conservative voters didn't turn out, and really the job of Rishi Sunak now is to try and find issues that push and prod Conservative voters to say, look, it's worth turning out at this election to try and keep as many Conservative MPs in Parliament.
Yeah, compulsory military service was certainly one of those ideas that was talking to Conservative voters. But how's that going to go down?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it's one of those ones that sort of sounds good but plays out poorly. It's certainly something that's reflective of the electoral situation that Rishi Sunak finds himself in. He needs to play to his base. So Reform, that is the formerly the Brexit Party led by Nigel Farage, aren't able to eat into his vote. So he's looking to kind of shore up the right. And I think for a lot of Conservatives that elected Sunak, and voted for Sunak when he was going for the leadership election, they'll be pretty shocked to see this sort of election mode Rishi, which is very different from how he's been Prime Minister.
We always talk about the red wall when it comes to elections in the UK, or the blue wall, whichever way that particular area of the UK goes. So basically what I'm trying to point out to our viewers is that there's a very big difference between kind of regional Britain and London, isn't there, in the issues that get people to turn out and vote and the issues that motivate them.
Yeah, that's certainly true. There's a few walls looking to be knocked down at this election, that's for sure, whether it's the blue wall down in the southwest or the red wall in the north and the Midlands. I think the difficulty for Sunak has been trying to pick what electoral coalition he wants to back in, and where he's landed now is ironically not on the economy, which is what the whole election announcement was about. To be able to make sure the Conservatives can steward economic recovery. It's actually on values. He's talking a lot more on immigration. He's talking a lot more on national service and cultural issues. And he's decided that he's trying to hark back a little bit to Boris Johnson's sort of election thumping 80-seat majority, and see if he can tap into a bit of that to save as many Conservative MPs as possible in the next sort of 30 days or so.
Yeah, he's going to want to tap into that, and he doesn't have long. Just finally, before we let you go, Mike, what did you think of the strategy of sending Rishi out in the rain to announce this summer election early?
Yeah, well, we couldn't get more iconic London, could you, than a spring day and it pouring down on the Prime Minister. But I would say this is, it for me is a sign really of the nature of a Rishi Sunak sort of leadership. He's really been the CEO for UK Limited. He very much kind of bills himself more of a business leader, probably more comfortable in Silicon Valley than the Welsh Valleys, than has been seen over his period of time as Prime Minister. What I would say is that it was a sign that he was desperate to get out there and call the election as quickly as possible. And that should probably give you a bit of information about what he's expecting at the upcoming election, which isn't good.
No, certainly not. It's hard to find a bright spot for him and the Conservatives at the moment. We will keep a very close eye on it. Mike, I'm looking forward to being over there in just over a month. We'll see you soon.
See ya.